everyone. Welcome to this episode of Beyond Max Q. I'm Mollie Jahner, your host. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to two of the most amazing women, who's Malory McLemore, who is the founder and CEO of Stell Engineering, and Laura Ahmetaj, who is graduated from HBS as well, and also all things engineering. Do you guys want to talk about that, what that's like? Like talking about working for prestigious companies and, the technical difficulties that maybe are associated with that, the different tribal knowledge, all those types of things.
Yeah, so I've worked at two aerospace prime contractors. One was Airbus, so that's the European equivalent of Boeing for those that aren't familiar. In the US, it is a very large company that has commercial aircraft, defense, space, lots of different things under a large umbrella. I was working in the engineering division in the US for commercial aircraft. And I think the amazing part about the primes is just the long history of these companies and the mission focus and the safety focus. There is this seriousness in every single meeting, caring about, the airline customer, the passenger, safety above everything else. And that was such a different culture coming out of college where I'm doing these math problems that aren't connected to a real outcome to actually every conversation and concern or test we're running, it does have a huge outcome for the people that use our products. So I think that was one of the most profound things about joining the primes that surprised me. There's obviously a lot of structure and support and training to be an early engineer. That is why it's great to start at these companies out of college because you learn from the best how to do really amazing mechanical systems engineering, material science. This is not something you can necessarily type into ChatGPT and learn about. Like being on the ground with these devices, learning from the other engineers is incredible. I think one thing that is challenging with the primes is they've gotten extremely large. Like there's this famous graph actually that Anderl made that shows back in the 1960s to 1980s, there were over 100 aerospace and defense major prime contractors. And today there are fewer than 10, really, if you talk about like these major companies. And what happens is like gain synergies after this M&A, HR is consolidated and there's systems in place. And so if you're an individual that is working very hard and providing excellent engineering, you're just kind of like your performance is very tiered and kind of sent into the ether back to corporate. And it can feel like you're not necessarily always recognized or rewarded for going above and beyond. Which I think when you have 130,000 employees, I understand why you need to do that. But as a 25-year-old engineer that wants to build cool things and work really hard and stay up late and go in the factory and figure things out, like you aren't necessarily incentivized.
Yeah, I feel like to Mallory's point, I had a few different roles. Some were manufacturing, and then I was in a capture organization within an R&D group, and like those are very different. And like we can at some point get down into that. But some of the people that I've worked with, both on the manufacturing floor and on an R&D group, are the most knowledgeable people I will like ever meet. Like there's like also brilliant people at startups, but like the depth of knowledge that these individuals have that have been there forever was absolutely insane. They've seen different programs come through. They've seen like different like trends within the government's buying patterns. They know like what is physically possible and what's cutting edge. And to me, like that heritage of knowledge is not something you can get everywhere. And I feel like people forget about that. Like to Mallory's point about these companies being a bit like bloated, large, and like them trying to get synergies. I think one thing that was like difficult as a young engineer was not feeling I had the right tools in place to do my job efficiently. So when I was in manufacturing, we had this like internally built MES platform that like I think was built in the 60s or 70s. Like it was very, very old and it's never been updated. And I could count to 10 seconds between like when I would click my mouse. And on top of this, I was also
dial up. Do you remember that? Like
yes,
AOL? Like, is that am I dating myself?
yes. And on top of that, like all these like new UX UI principles that are like on all the new softwares that make things like you can see multiple screens at once or whatever it is, like didn't exist back then. It just was so frustrating because I would be building like my antennas and building my manufacturing plans. I have like drawing stacks of like 30 or 40 different sheets with like 50 different part numbers, and like I don't even know, it'd be like 200 steps by the time I was done, that quality checks in, and then I would figure out mentally how to build this entire thing in like a few days. But it would take me a week just to put it, like 2 weeks just to like literally click and like type out what I need to type out or copy and paste and throw it in.
I get
And it took
frustrated
me,
with ChatGPT legs, and you're like,
yeah.
oh no, now I have to like wait, and I can't pause it. Like I'm like, oh, like
And
I
I
can't.
knew what was next, and you don't want to sit there and just like, I thought it was high performing, so I was like, I can't just sit here and stare at the screen and just wait. So I would like, oh, go, let me check my email really quick. And by the time you got back, you'd like be so distracted from like what you're doing before. You're like, oh wait, what was my thought process? So that just was like a bit frustrating to me. And I would like ask some of the more senior people on my team, like, why don't we change this? Like, why can't we? And then you like learn it's this, I will come to tribal knowledge too, is like there's like, oh, we have every single intent we've ever built was like put in here. So we can't like lose this information, but you also can't look it up because like the backend database is not as searchable as like all of these like SQL or any other like platform that people use today. So you couldn't get a hold of it. So it was like they didn't want to get rid of this data, but we also are building things different because we have less people and more machines. And it's like this really interesting place right now. But when I left that team was 4 years ago, I didn't think there was as many software solutions out there. But that to me was like a very frustrating thing. I think it's across like a lot of the primes. It's just like they brought all these softwares together. They like smorgasbord them all together. They're all the organizations and like divisions aren't really talking that much, and it just doesn't feel as efficient as it could be. And for me, I want to spend more time like focusing on the actual like problems and the thinking than it was like using a tool that was taking me forever. So like that was something that was like just a bit frustrating. And then when I went to this R&D group, I did more of like proposal leadership. So I wasn't dealing with the software itself, and I kind of did more of leading design engineering and proposals and like winning money and building the business, which also pivoted my business school trajectory. But I guess like to summarize, some brilliant people, a little outdated, but also some of the most cutting edge technology at Primes.